Iran, a land whose very name often conjures images of war, religious extremism, and walls covered in desert dust. But what if everything we think we know about Iran comes only from those who have never truly been there? Perhaps behind the fences of ideology and the echoes of political slogans, there lies another Iran, an Iran the media rarely touches, a nation where poverty and luxury coexist in the same frame, where the call to prayer blends with the glow of Western-style cafes, where women wearing headscarves also carry laptops, building startups in sleek, modern workspaces. Iran, often labeled the most sinful country in the world, but is that truth, or merely the shadow the world has cast upon it? In this journey, we won't stand outside, gazing at Iran through the filter of global headlines. We'll step inside, into its alleyways, its bazaars, its faces, to see the stories that were never told. Because the truth often doesn't live in the places people talk about the most, but in the ones where silence has settled longest. The world is not as it seems. It never is. Haruki Murakami. So, what awaits us behind the veil of prejudice? Let's find out. Number 1. The truth you've seen. They say Iran is a harsh place, where extremism and poverty walk hand in hand, where people live only in fear and obedience. But if you step away from the bright city lights, away from the crowded boulevards of Tehran, you'll find a very different Iran, a land where every cracked brick, every dirt road, every wall patched with rusted tin tells a story of survival. There, children chase one another through dusty alleyways, not out of carefree joy, but because their schools have been left behind. According to Iran's Ministry of Welfare, 2024, more than 160,000 children of school age in poor regions no longer have access to education, not because they are forbidden to study, but because staying alive has become more urgent than learning. A pair of shoes, a notebook, a bus ride, all have turned into luxuries for families who must choose between dinner and tuition. Makeshift homes, tangled electric wires tied with plastic cords, nameless neighborhoods. This is the Iran the media occasionally mentions in a few cold lines. The slums of Tehran. But what television cameras fail to capture is the resilience hidden behind those scenes. Inside the small, patched-up homes, a mother splits her bowl of rice in half so her child can eat. A father buries his own dreams to work extra hours at the factory. Teenagers, after their shifts, gather to teach math and reading to children who can't afford school. None of them carry titles of heroes, yet it is they who quietly keep these forgotten streets from collapsing. Through the haze of dust and exhaust fumes, a faint light still shines, not from electricity, but from the human spirit. Iran is not merely a story of extremism and poverty. It is also a story of compassion, endurance, and the will to live, the story of ordinary people who still find reasons to keep going, even when the world has forgotten them. As Albert Camus once wrote, "In the midst of winter, I found there was, within me, an invincible summer." Perhaps that is what's happening in Iran, an invincible summer, quietly blooming within the desert of scarcity and prejudice. Number 2, the Iran they don't show you. They say Iran is a land forgotten by time, a place where life moves on the backs of camels and technology never takes root. But the moment you step into Tehran, that stereotype dissolves like sand in the wind. On the surface, cars crowd the highways in chaotic streams, while beneath the ground, subway trains glide silently, smooth, clean, and punctual to the minute. Not far away, modern cafes buzz with the energy of youth, young Iranians typing on laptops, building startups, discussing technology and the future, as if the world's sanctions were nothing more than background noise. In Isfahan, or Shiraz, Instead of the dusty, outdated bazaars that outsiders imagine, you'll find glass-fronted buildings, shopping centers, co-working hubs, and high-speed internet. Faster, in fact, than in many Western cities. Behind those seemingly closed walls lives an entire generation refusing to be confined. They create, they code, they dream. Iran, a nation isolated by the world, yet capable of launching satellites, manufacturing aircraft, researching nuclear energy, and leading the region in nanotechnology. A country under blockade, but never paralyzed. An economy restricted, yet exploding through intellect. Iranians don't wait for doors to open, they build their own. And while the world still imagines them surrounded by desert, they've already stepped into the digital age with their bare hands. On social media, the rich kids of Tehran flaunt sports cars, rooftop pools, and designer brands, stunning the world. Is this really Iran? But those are just fragments, pieces of a complex society where the poor and the wealthy exist in two parallel realities. In rural areas, donkeys still pull carts, but in the cities, coders write lines of code that push the nation forward. Iran, often portrayed by the media as backward, is in truth a kaleidoscope of contradictions and progress, a place where the fire of tradition burns beside the light of innovation. And perhaps it is this coexistence that defines its soul, an ancient nation that refuses to grow old. And here, in a country the world calls the most sinful on earth, perhaps its people have already chosen to be leaders, in silence. Number 3. Iranians aren't Arabs. One of the greatest misconceptions the world holds about Iran is the belief that Iranians are Arabs. They share the Middle East, they share a religion, and they share a similar-looking script. So the world conveniently places them into one box labeled the Arab world. But the truth is far different. Iran is not an Arab nation, and Iranians are not Arabs. They are Persians, descendants of a civilization that once shone like sunlight over the ancient sands of Persepolis. Their blood carries the memory of empires that ruled vast lands, stretching from Greece to India. The language they speak, Farsi, or Persian, does not belong to the Semitic family of Arabic, but to the Indo-European group, the same linguistic family as English, German, and French. Yet, because they write with the Arabic alphabet, the world hastily assigns them an identity that isn't theirs. But if Indonesia uses the Latin script, does that make Indonesians Dutch? Of course not. To call a person by the wrong name is to erase a part of their soul. In Iran, you'll hear a warm, melodic tongue, its rhythm flowing like the poetry of Hafez and Rumi, two of the greatest poets humanity has ever known. In the bazaars of Isfahan or Shiraz, vendors greet you in Farsi, not Arabic. In schools, children study the history of the Persian Empire, not that of the Arab tribes. And in the heart of every Iranian burns a fierce pride in their heritage, radiant as the sun blazing over the Lut Desert. Iran is a crossroads of many ethnicities: Persian, Kurdish, Azeri, Lur, Arab, Baloch, yet at its core lives the Persian spirit, a spirit of poetry, intellect, and pride. Because more than anything, Iranians do not just speak a language, they live in a culture. And while the world continues to merge the Middle East into one indistinct whole, they choose to preserve their difference as a quiet declaration. We are not anyone's copy. We are Iran, the land of poets, philosophers, and a civilization that once taught humanity the beauty of the soul. Number 4. Is Iran aggressive? The world often speaks of Iran as a hostile force, a spark waiting to ignite the powder keg of the Middle East. But if we silence the noise of politics and listen instead to history, we'll find that Iran has never been the one to seek war. In more than a century, this nation has never initiated a major conflict. Its bloodiest war, the Iran-Iraq War, began in 1980, not because Iran attacked, but because Iraq crossed the border first. The next 8 years became 8 years of defense, 8 years of sacrifice, 8 years in which millions of Iranians fought not to conquer, but simply to survive. Since then, Iran's military doctrine has revolved around one core principle: no first strike. It sounds paradoxical for a country branded as dangerous, yet even its own leaders have repeatedly stated Iran's strength does not lie in aggression, but in endurance. Still, the West continues to view Iran through the lens of fear. In a world built on declarations and threats, silence is often mistaken for scheming. But according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Iran's military spending per capita is significantly lower than that of its Gulf neighbors, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. So who, then, is truly the aggressor? That question, perhaps, each person must answer for themselves. Step beyond the headlines, and you'll see another Iran. Citizens lining up for bread, taxi drivers blasting pop music, young couples dreaming of traveling to Europe. None of them want war. They do not hate the West. They are simply tired of living under a fear they did not create. War doesn't prove who is just. It only reveals who survives. And Iran, surrounded by sanctions, suspicion, and misunderstanding, chooses to endure by living, by working, by loving, and by hoping in a world perpetually ready to misjudge them. Perhaps the most frightening thing about Iran is not its strength, but the remarkable patience of a nation that has learned to live within storms and still hold on to its humanity. Number 5. Religious, not radicals. From the outside, Iran is often labeled with 2 words: religious extremism. Images of massive prayer gatherings, mourning rituals during Muharram, and black-clad crowds have led the world to believe this is a nation living in fear and dogma. But beneath that ceremonial surface lies a very different Iran. Here, religion is not merely law, it is culture, memory, and identity. Iran follows Shia Islam, yet within it thrive diverse communities: Sunni Muslims, Armenian and Assyrian Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, followers of one of Mesopotamia's oldest faiths, and even non-believers, quietly living by their own sense of spirituality. The black flags and lamentations are not symbols of terror, but of remembrance, of sacrifice, of resilience against injustice. In Iran, devotion does not equal fanaticism. For many, religious practice has become part of daily rhythm, like a familiar song whose lyrics everyone knows, even if few still sing it with the same conviction. To Iranians, faith is just that, a journey of growth, not a set of chains. In the mosques, you may see tears, but step into a cafe in Tehran, and you'll hear laughter, music, and passionate debates about freedom, knowledge, and Western philosophy. Between faith and reason, they do not choose sides, they embrace both. Spirituality in Iran flows quietly yet deeply, across millennia, through the Persian empires, through Islam, and into the hearts of generations now learning how to believe in their own way. Perhaps what makes Iran truly remarkable is not its religiosity, but the way its people have turned faith into a form of humanity, a belief that listens, understands, and forgives. Number 6. Iran isn't gray. Amid gray walls and grim headlines about censorship, you might think Iran is a rigid, colorless land, a place where joy has no room to breathe. But step onto the streets of Tehran at dusk, and you'll witness a completely different story. Cafes glow with soft golden light, where young people sit by their laptops, discussing technology, philosophy, and dreams they haven't yet reached. They don't talk about politics. They talk about the future. In another corner, a group of students hosts TEDx Tehran, where they speak about innovation, democracy, and transparency, topics once thought unspeakable, yet now shared, gently but persistently. Among them are young women, unveiled, unshouting, simply smiling, and that smile itself is a quiet form of defiance. Iran, a nation the world assumes shrouded in darkness, is, in truth, glowing quietly from within. In small rooms, young artists paint visions of freedom. Musicians compose songs banned from the airwaves. Filmmakers shoot with mobile phones, capturing stories that the world will see years later, once they cross the borders of the internet. It is the presence of shadow that gives light its worth. And that light, in Iran, does not shine from palaces of power. It radiates from the hearts of a generation growing up amid contradictions, between faith and freedom, tradition and innovation, fear and aspiration. They do not rebel with noise. They transform their world by learning, by creating, by believing that the future can still be rewritten if they dare to write it. Perhaps the world has yet to see the real Iran. Not the gray of political headlines, but the rainbow quietly blooming in the dark, vivid, silent, and enduring. Number 7. Iran isn't just a desert. When the world speaks of Iran, most imagine an endless land of heat and sand, camel caravans crossing barren dunes under a burning sun. But the truth stretches far beyond that image. Iran is not just desert. It is a living canvas of nature, painted in contrasts and unexpected colors. To the north, along the Caspian Sea, lush green forests blanket the land, humid, misty, and vibrant, defying the world's idea of Iran as arid and lifeless. To the west, the mighty Zagros Mountains rise to the sky, their peaks draped in snow like the silent robes of winter. With each season, the range changes color, from pure white in winter to stony gray, then to bright green as spring arrives. Further south, the vast dunes of Dashti Kavir and Dashti Lut shimmer like golden oceans, yet right beside them grow gardens of pomegranates, grapes, and saffron. Bursts of green and red thriving in the heart of the desert. Drive just a few hours north from Tehran, and you'll reach Dizin, a ski resort perched over 2,600 meters high, where Iranians strap on snowboards, wear winter coats, and laugh as they glide down snowy slopes, a scene that few would ever believe belongs to this country. Perhaps the image of desert Iran is merely a fragment of a vast whole, a body of land where every region beats with its own rhythm, its own soul. Just like the Iranian people themselves, diverse, contradictory, yet full of life. From Caspian fishermen to Zagros shepherds, from engineers in city towers to farmers on the plateau, all together compose a complex but harmonious symphony. And perhaps Iran's breathtaking diversity of landscapes is the truest reflection of its people's spirit. Never flat, never gray, but radiant, profound, and endlessly surprising, just like the land they call home. Number 8. Iranians are educated. When the world thinks of Iran, it often imagines restriction, a place without freedom, where censorship tightens its grip on every voice. But behind those silent walls lies something that can never be confined: knowledge. Step into the campus of any university in Tehran or Isfahan, and you'll see a scene the media rarely shows. Male and female students sitting side by side, debating artificial intelligence, economics, literature, and quantum physics. And astonishingly, more than half of them are women. According to Iran's Ministry of Education, nearly 60% of university students are female. a ratio that surpasses that of many developed nations. These women don't study for the sake of a diploma. They study to prove that knowledge remains the most powerful force against every limitation. They don't need slogans. They simply raise their hands in class, asking the questions society fears to answer. And in that quiet act, they ignite a revolution of intellect. In Iran, over 85% of the population is literate, and that number continues to rise, despite economic sanctions and technological embargoes. Even under internet censorship, students find ways around digital walls with VPNs, sharing research papers through secret online groups, and hosting underground study circles in small cafes. Tiny reading rooms, private libraries, and after-work study groups form an unseen network of learning where light spreads silently but persistently through the dark. In Iran, that weapon does more than change the world. It keeps the nation's soul alive amid the shadows of censorship. For the Iranian people, even under strict laws, faith in the written word never dies. Because knowledge, unlike freedom, does not need to be granted. It only needs to be shared. And once that light passes from one person to another, no wall on earth is thick enough to stop it. Number 9. Women in Iran. The world says that Iranian women are bound, veiled, and forbidden. But look closer, and you'll see another story. A story of quiet defiance, of freedom discovered within boundaries. In Tehran's crowded lecture halls, more than half of the students are women. They study medicine, engineering, architecture, and computer science, fields once reserved for men. They do not study to rebel, but to prove that knowledge has no gender. In offices, they run startups, design software, report the news, practice law, and lead engineering teams. In laboratories, they research stem cells and renewable energy. While the world imagines them imprisoned, they are, every day, unlocking their own freedom. The hijab, the veil the West often sees as a symbol of oppression, in Iran becomes an instrument of creativity. Some women choose to wear the full black chador as a way to honor tradition, but most turn it into a personal statement. Tailored manteau coats, in subtle tones of beige, olive, or ash gray, paired with polished leather shoes, a delicate necklace, and deep red lipstick. They do not speak loudly, but every detail on their bodies whispers, "I am here, I am alive, I am myself." In a country where a glance can be a punishment, fashion becomes language, and every step on the street, a declaration of existence. Indeed, Iranian women have refused to shrink. They do not break the rules. They bend them with grace. They do not shout for freedom. They carve it quietly into every look, every gesture, every breath. Some choose to stay home and raise families. Others step out to build careers. None of them live an easy life, but all live with an astonishing dignity. In Iran, women are not shadows behind closed doors. They are the heartbeat of the nation, a steady, resilient rhythm that keeps society alive even under the weight of restraint. The world may still see only the fabric that covers them, but if you stand close enough, you'll see what lies beneath, a light that is powerful, subtle, and unyielding, just like the soul of Iran itself. Number 10. Traffic in Iran. If you ever thought Iran was standing still amid the flow of the modern world, just spend one morning in Tehran, and that illusion will collapse instantly. As the sun rises, thousands of cars begin to move across the city's tangled streets, where the sound of horns merges with the heartbeat of daily life. Beneath the ground, the subway trains glide silently, clean, punctual, and crowded, just like in any major modern capital. The Tehran metro stretches over 200 kilometers, with more than 100 stations, connecting distant suburbs to the bustling city center. For many Iranians, it is more than just a means of transport. It is a symbol of progress amidst adversity. Despite being sanctioned, isolated, and constrained by a maze of international restrictions, Iran continues to build and to move forward. Trains connect the Caspian Sea in the north to the Persian Gulf in the south, carrying goods, people, and hope. Inside Iran's hospitals, medical technology astonishes visitors. The country has developed one of the leading organ transplant programs in the region, and it leads the Middle East in stem cell research and cancer treatment. So advanced, in fact, that patients from neighboring nations cross the border just to receive care in Iranian hospitals. In small laboratories, doctors, engineers, and scientists work quietly, not to seek fame, but to prove one truth: knowledge cannot be sanctioned. Indeed, while the world builds walls of embargo, Iranians turn those very walls into ladders. Through hardship, they keep creating, building, and advancing with the pride of a nation that once forged empires of light. From the packed metro lines to the trains that run through the night, from the glow of hospital wards to the laughter echoing in cafes, Iran has never stopped. They may be isolated on the political map, but never disconnected from the pulse of the world. Perhaps it is precisely in adversity that a nation's true character is revealed. And Iran, encircled by sanctions yet unbroken, keeps moving forward quietly but steadfastly, like a train cutting through the night, never stopping. Number 11. Iranians don't hate tourists. People often say that Iran is hostile toward the West, that foreign visitors are met with suspicion, even hatred. But the moment you step off the plane in Tehran, you realize how completely false that is. As you roll your suitcase out of the airport, someone will smile and ask, "Where are you from?" When you get lost in an old bazaar, a stranger will stop their car, show you the way, and refuse any money in return. And when you pause to rest, you might hear the soft invitation, "Would you like to have tea with me?" That simple question carries 1,000 years of Persian tradition. Hospitality. In Iran, hospitality isn't a formality, it's an identity. They might not agree with your government, but they'll never treat you coldly, because in their hearts, humanity comes before politics. Many travelers say the hardest thing in Iran is not finding your way, but finding a polite way to decline the 5th dinner invitation in a single day. And it is within that very space, over a cup of tea, a smile, a quiet conversation, that countless Western visitors have left Iran with hearts warmed and minds changed. They tell stories of a nation utterly different from what they saw on the news. A place where strangers invite you into their homes, where a humble meal turns into a feast of laughter, where people ask about your world not with suspicion, but with genuine curiosity. Iran may be one of the most misunderstood countries on earth, but Iranians themselves have never lost the one virtue that has defined them for millennia: kindness. Because no matter how many walls the world tries to build, people still find each other through a cup of tea, a smile, or a simple hello whispered in the street. In a land once branded the most sinful on earth, perhaps the holiest thing is how its people treat a stranger, with warmth, dignity, and grace. The world we live in is made of stories, but not all of them are true. Iran, the so-called most sinful country in the world, turns out to be a mirror, reflecting how we ourselves choose to see the truth. From the surface, or from within, from afar, or up close. From a distance, we only see the dark strokes: war, extremism, isolation. But when we come closer, we find laughter, music, dreams, and the quiet light of human kindness. The real journey isn't about how many places you visit. It's about whether you dare to see the world through different eyes. Iran is just one of many countries misunderstood by the world. And perhaps the world we think we know still hides countless layers waiting to be revealed. You don't have to agree with everything you've seen, but if this video made you pause for a moment, if it made you ask a question, then the journey has already mattered. Because every time we choose to look deeper, to listen instead of judge, humanity takes one step closer to the truth. If you want to keep uncovering forgotten lands, distorted stories, and the hidden realities behind what the headlines show, subscribe to join us on this journey. Farther, deeper, and truer. Fascinating discoveries, not just a travel channel, but a quest to find what most people overlook. That truth always lives in the details.